Tonight, 3 stories breaking as we come on the air. R. Kelly in court. A judge sets bail at $1 million for the R&B star charged with sexually abusing 4 women, 3 of them underage at the time. The crisis in Venezuela escalates. Tear gas and bullets fly as protesters and government troops clash, while the truck carrying much-needed aid is set on fire as it tries to cross the border. Robert Mueller's team slams the president's former campaign chairman in new court documents, what Paul Manafort is accused of doing after pleading guilty. Pedophiles prowling on YouTube. The tech company says it is cracking down, but is it safe to post videos of your kids online? Honoring American heroes, a special ceremony 75 years after airmen made the ultimate sacrifice to save a group of children. And the winter race that is oh so Canadian. We'll take you inside the world of ice canoeing.
This is NBC Nightly News with Jose Diaz-Balart.
Good evening. He is one of this country's most successful entertainers, but today a stoic R. Kelly stood before a judge facing 10 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse involving 4 victims, 3 of whom were minors at the time. A judge setting bond at $1 million, ordering Kelly to stay away from anyone under age 18. Tonight, an attorney for Kelly is pushing back on the claims. NBC's Ron Mott starts us off, and a warning that this story contains sensitive language.
Allegations of preying on underage girls have trailed R. Kelly for nearly 2 decades. And tonight, the singer faces 10 felony charges involving 4 women, 3 of whom were minors at the time authorities say the singer had illegal sexual contact with them. Today, a judge set bond for the 52-year-old who stood during the brief hearing at $1 million. These new charges, aggravated criminal sexual abuse, stemming in part from a video prosecutors say was provided by a witness through an attorney.
In the video, the victim repeatedly says she is 14 years old, and Robert Kelly is seen penetrating the victim orally and vaginally.
If there is video of R. Kelly discussing and acknowledging the fact that a victim is underage, that will blow up any defense that he reasonably believed his victim was above 17 years of age.
Kelly's troubled reputation is detailed in a new docuseries, Surviving R. Kelly, in which his alleged history of physical, mental, and sexual abuse are recounted in graphic fashion. Geronda Pace is one of the alleged victims mentioned in the indictment. In January, she told Dateline she began a relationship with Kelly when she was 16.
If I didn't agree to having sex with him or performing, I would be locked in a room.
The entertainer has long denied all allegations, his attorney offering a stern defense.
He did not force anyone to have sex. He doesn't have, he's a rock star. He doesn't have to have non-consensual sex.
Kelly was acquitted on child pornography charges in 2008, but tonight a perhaps more difficult battle lies ahead.
R. Kelly is due back in court here on Monday. He's expected to appear before the chief judge to have his case assigned out. In the meantime, tonight he's trying to make bail. His lawyer says he thinks he'll be able to come up with the money, but that it could take some time. Jose?
Ron Mott in Chicago, thank you. A tense situation turned increasingly violent on Venezuela's borders with Colombia and Brazil today, as protesters desperate for humanitarian and aid clash with government forces loyal to President Nicolás Maduro. NBC's Tammy Leitner has late details.
Some of the most violent clashes yet. As angry Venezuelans protested President Nicolás Maduro's decision to block desperately needed food and other aid from Colombia and neighboring Brazil. Bullets and bloodshed. Bridges into the region still blocked. Telemundo's Rogelio Mora Tagle is in the middle of the battle.
I'm here at the Santander Bridge in Cúcuta, Colombia, the border with Venezuela, where just a little while ago, 4 trucks with Mauritanian aid crossed to the other side. 2 of them were burned down, and the situation here gets worse by the minute.
Since just yesterday, reports of several protesters dead, killed by Maduro's security forces. Tensions have reached a boiling point. Things so volatile, some of those soldiers switching sides. Now pledging allegiance to interim President Juan Guaido, who is in Colombia spearheading efforts to get aid across, much of it from the United States. This is the third trip the U.S. military has made with life-saving medical supplies. This C-17 is carrying enough medicine to help 40,000 people for 3 months. And there's enough rice on this flight alone to feed 2,000 people for a month. None of it has made it into Venezuela, where people like Yanedi Guzman are starving. Sometimes we don't have food, she says. Sometimes it's difficult for me to eat. During a rally in Caracas today, Maduro continues to insist there is no humanitarian crisis in Venezuela. And speaking directly to President Trump. Tammy Leitner, NBC News.
Special Counsel Robert Mueller filed a sentencing memo today for President Trump's former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, who pleaded guilty to conspiracy in September. Mueller's prosecutors alleging Manafort continued to break the law even after being indicted. We get more from White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell.
Today, the Office of Special Counsel laid out a damning portrait of former Trump campaign chief Paul Manafort. Prosecutors write his criminal actions were bold, some of which were committed while under a spotlight due to his work as the campaign chairman. Today's 848-page filing in Washington could shape how much prison time the 69-year-old Manafort faces for one of 2 criminal cases. The special counsel does not recommend a specific number of years, but prosecutors weave a narrative of deception and greed involving Manafort's lobbying work for Ukraine that began years before the Trump campaign, but continued through the fall of 2018. For over a decade, Manafort repeatedly and brazenly violated the law. Even after Manafort cut a deal agreeing to cooperate with the hope of reducing his sentence, prosecutors write he instead engaged in witness tampering while on bail and committed the additional crimes of perjury and making false statements after he entered his guilty pleas. But notably, no bombshell surprises. The Mueller team sheds no new light on Manafort's interactions during the Trump campaign with his longtime associate Konstantin Kilimnik, who is linked to Russian intelligence, or any other evidence of conspiracy in the campaign.
It also doesn't tell us one way or the other what evidence Bob Mueller might have put together in the course of his investigation.
Manafort faces a maximum of 10 years in prison for this D.C. criminal case and separate sentencing for financial crimes in Virginia. His legal team can also respond to today's memo. In the bigger picture, expectations are running high about when the Mueller team will deliver its final report to the Attorney General. The latest guidance from the Department of Justice is that will not happen next week. No reason given, but that would mean the report would not drop while the president is out of the country for the second summit with North Korea. Jose?
Kelly O'Donnell at the White House. Thank you. Near El Paso, Texas today, Acting Secretary of Defense Patrick Shanahan inspected parts of the U.S.-Mexico border. His visit comes after President Trump's declaration of a national emergency, which would allow the use of Pentagon funds for the construction of a border wall, something that Democrats have vowed to challenge. We're watching some severe weather in parts of the country tonight and into tomorrow. NBC meteorologist Dylan Dreyer joins us with the latest. Dylan.
Good evening, Jose. We have seen a lot of rain across Tennessee and Mississippi, but this whole storm system is now moving eastward, and as it does so, it's going to lose some of its moisture. So while we will see some heavy rain across the Appalachians tonight up through the Great Lakes, tomorrow we'll see some heavy rain up and down the East Coast. By tomorrow afternoon, the whole storm system pulls away, and we're not looking for that much more additional rain. Up and down the East Coast, perhaps just an inch or so, and areas farther west, maybe just a half of an inch of additional rainfall. So that should help to improve the flooding threat. Winds, though, could be damaging and will get stronger, especially through the Great Lakes as we go into tonight. In Buffalo, especially, we could see a period of damaging winds, perhaps gusting up to about 65 to 75 miles per hour, and that could lead to some wind damage, and this will affect flights up and down the East Coast as well. Jose?
Dylan Dreyer, thank you so much. And now to that historic summit at the Vatican focused on the sex abuse crisis. The assembled leaders of the Catholic Church, the Pope included, were read the riot act today by someone with a different perspective, a nun, who called them hypocrites. ABC's Ann Thompson is following it all for us at the Vatican. Ann.
Good evening, Jose. Strong words tonight to the men of the Catholic Church from a woman. Sister Veronica Openibo of Nigeria chastising the bishops, calling them hypocrites for holding themselves up as custodians of moral values, but staying silent for so long about the abuse of children by priests. Tonight, in a service of repentance with Pope Francis, the bishops acknowledged they hadn't done enough to protect children. Survivors of that abuse rallying today in Rome, demanding zero tolerance for abusive priests and bishops who cover up crimes. One idea comes from Chicago Cardinal Blaise Cupich, who wants archbishops to discipline bishops with the help of lay people. Tomorrow, we'll hear what the Pope thinks when he addresses the summit, perhaps outlining a way for the Catholic Church to finally end this scandal. Jose?
And Thompson at the Vatican, thank you. Sexual misconduct is hardly a problem limited to the Catholic Church. Just yesterday, Patriots owner Robert Kraft was charged with soliciting a prostitute. The alleged acts took place at a Florida day spa where investigators believe female workers may actually be victims of human trafficking. NBC's Morgan Chesky takes a closer look.
It's the illicit industry earning billions. The victims, mostly women and children.
Our concern in this investigation centers around our possibility of victims of human trafficking.
Just yesterday, police say Patriots owner Robert Kraft allegedly paid for sex inside this Florida massage parlor, a charge he denies. The women involved believed to have been smuggled into the U.S. from as far away as China. Police don't believe Kraft was involved with trafficking, but that may not be the case with singer R. Kelly, now charged with sexual abuse. The Department of Homeland Security confirming they're also looking into possible ties to sex trafficking.
It's happening every day right in our backyards. Every city, county, and state in the United States has human trafficking.
Sex trafficking can mean moving victims across the globe or even just state lines.
Nationwide, stats show it's on the rise. In 2017, the Human Trafficking Hotline reported a 13% bump in calls, with more than 6,000 of them sex-related.
It really hits a nerve.
In Washington, President Trump called the crime an urgent humanitarian issue, signing bills just last month to better fund survivor programs and hold other countries accountable.
These crimes will not be tolerated.
The NFL also doing its part, launching a series of PSAs in the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, a known hotbed for sex trafficking. A potential spotlight on a crime hidden behind closed doors. Morgan Chesky, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Discrimination comes in many forms, but here in New York City, new legal guidelines aim to stop discrimination based on the way people wear their hair. NBC's Rahema Ellis has more.
At Harlem Natural Hair Salon, clients there are talking about a groundbreaking new law in New York City, banning discrimination based on natural hairstyles, like cornrows, braids, afros, and other styles most frequently worn by black people.
Shocking that in 2019, we should need to have a law that protects me from being discriminated against for wearing my hair the way it grows out of my head.
It's a nationwide issue. In Florida last year, a 6-year-old boy was sent home from school for wearing dreadlocks, his father pleading with staff.
The hair is at their shoulders. What's the difference?
In New Jersey, outrage after a high school wrestler was told to cut his dreadlocks or forfeit the match. And in Westchester, New York, Destiny Tompkins quit her retail job after her boss criticized her braids.
He told me that my hair looked very unkempt and it was too urban for their image, and that if I didn't take it out, then I wouldn't be scheduled for shifts.
In a statement to NBC News, Destiny's employer, The Gap, said the manager was fired and they have zero tolerance for discrimination. Meanwhile, the ACLU says it's seeing an increase in complaints from victims across the country.
It's only black people who are punished when they choose to wear their hair in their natural texture.
Back at the salon,
our hair has nothing to do with our job performance.
Some relief that the nation's largest city is now providing protection for how people wear their hair. Rahema Ellis, NBC News, New York.
In England, an emotional ceremony honoring the memory of 10 American airmen who gave their lives during World War II so that a group of children could live. Here's Matt Bradley.
For 75 years, Tony Folds has carried a heavy debt. On Friday, in front of a crowd of nearly 10,000, he paid a little bit back.
I wouldn't be here now if it hadn't been for these lads.
It was February 1944. Folds, just 8 years old, was playing in a park in Sheffield when a badly damaged American bomber called Mi Amigo attempted a crash landing as it returned from a mission. Seeing Folds and his friends, the pilot swerved to avoid them, crashing in the trees.
I was in the park and always felt guilty